All right, guys, we're going to do another little shop update. There's going to be a couple of topics covered in this shop update. I had to fix a weight bracket. If any of you know from a very old shop update, I had built a weight bracket for my old truck because it was two-wheel drive. I just wanted to keep weight over the axles, and I've got 10 plates off of an International 1060 weight plates that go on the front. So I had them, and what I did is made a bracket where the weight plates, I could fit weight plates on the bracket, a varying amount of them. I've had as many as 5 on the bracket, but anyways, what happened is that bracket did not fit onto my new truck. For some reason, the ball distance is a little different from this truck, the new truck, to the old truck. It fit the old truck, but just barely. So what I had to do was shorten it a little bit, get the ball receiver down closer to the bed of the truck. And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you a little thing about the toolbox. It's not a toolbox update, but just a little thing about wrench storage and some truck, and I'm gonna bring you back, and we're gonna talk about a haul that I had to make out to Massachusetts. Kind of a little funny story, but anyways, let's dive into it. Toolbox thing first. Okay, wrench storage. Now I'm at the welding table, and you might think that's odd why I'm not at the toolbox. What I did is switch these things out, and let's dive into it. Morning coffee too. Let's dive into it. In my wrench drawers, I had these tool holders, wrench holders. The red ones happen to be made by Mac. These things are older and were made by Craftsman. What the problem is the wrench is going from large to small, formed a pyramid type of thing. But what it did is take up a lot of space, because when you had these wrenches, big wrench over there, and then there would be a lot of kind of lost space that you really couldn't get other things into. So what my thought process was, why don't they make a pyramid type shaped thing that is in reverse so that you could put them like this? In other words, small to big, big to small. And it would take up less space because they would angle up, going from large to small, and vice versa. The only problem with that is you can't read what the wrench is because it's facing the other way in this type of a situation. The same thing happens with the Craftsman one. So I said something to the Mac Tool guy about it, and he says, well, we have another one that's a rail wrench, a rail type wrench holder. And let me take you back over to the box and I'll show that to you. And this is what I'm talking about. Now, I just got 2 of them because I only wanted 2 to start to kind of figure out if they work. But what they are is like an anodized aluminum thing. They've got magnetic holders for the wrench, and they also have magnets that hold the rail onto the box, which is good. I'm a huge believer of the rails being held onto the box by magnets. It keeps them from shifting around, especially with sockets. You'll find them narrow rails. Narrow rails with that a lot of sets come on. Tip over very easily, but if they're magnetic, they kind of stay in place. So I do like them. Again, I'm not going to really give you my a big opinion about it because the magnets that hold the wrench on there don't seem to be that strong enough for smaller wrenches, but kind of lose their effect on larger wrenches. Now, if it became an issue, I could probably put two rails side by side there, and it would add more support to it. That would be kind of bizarre. I mean, these things aren't very expensive, really. They're not very expensive. Let me show you another one I got. So I told you I had the two. He showed me these things on the truck, and all he had it in was this pukey neon green color. Not the typical neon green color that a lot of toolboxes are and stuff like that, but it was really a bizarre neon green color. I didn't want that, so I told him to get me a couple of red ones, which he did. When he brought them back, he says, I found another one for two that I had in my shop. It's a longer one, so it's got 24. I think it's actually got 26 slots per the thing. I would have really liked it if it went front to back, because I don't like that sideways thing. Most of the time when you open a drawer for the wrenches, you're opening it straight on, and here you have to kind of come over to the side to see what size it is. I mean, most people that use wrenches a lot, after a while, they kind of know exactly where it is. It's kind of like second guessing, or you just come and grab the wrench and you know where what size is without having to look at it, was what I'm trying to say. But anyways, I'll keep you updated on this. Again, I wish that long thing. Here's what I'm thinking about doing is taking it apart and cutting it down and just reinserting the end of it so that it does fit front to back. But I'll let you know what happens with it, either in another shop update or if I give you a toolbox tour. I'll explain these wrenches here too in a toolbox tour. This is a weight bracket out of my truck. The weights off of the 1066 International go on it, and just add some weight to the back of my truck when it's icy out, snowing out, need traction. Again, my truck's only two-wheel drive, so what the issue is, this was built for my old truck, and even though it fits in there, when I build it in the old truck, it would just fit onto the ball. I kind of probably screwed up and got the receiver for the ball a little too high, so it would just fit on there. In the new truck, it won't close. In other words, it won't latch because the ball is a little too low. So what I'm going to end up doing is shortening this thing a little bit. What I'm going to do is just cut an inch off of it, cut an inch off of the tube steel. I'll have to grind all of those old pieces, cut and grind all those old pieces off of there, and then just lower it down, put it on that way. But I'll bring you back as I'm doing it. Just going to use the Portaband cut it off with, so I'm not going to show you any of that, but when it goes back to fitting it up, maybe I'll bring you back and show you that. Okay, so it's a couple of days later. I had a couple of hauls to make, and what I'm doing is I'm back on the weight bracket. So I cut it off using the bandsaw and the cutoff wheel. I have removed the base from the bracket. And what I've done is come over here. Now this is where these two angle plates, tie plates, tied in down here, and I've removed all the weld and what was left of that I had cut off. And there is the base of the one tube that I cut off. Kind of an angled cut there, but that's what you get when you can't get the guide on the bandsaw was interfering with it. So that's one of them there. This is the one that I just removed. What I did is I use a Portaband. Maybe I'll set up a camera on a tripod and kind of show it to you. Use the Portaband and just skim the blade along the top of it and remove most of it. Then use a cutoff wheel, flapper disc, cutoff wheel, grinding disc first, and then flapper disc and remove it that way. And this is kind of what it comes out to. But I'll bring you back. Okay, there you go. Okay, so here is the weight bracket up. Now, what I did is I just put it in place, tacked it up. I didn't even those cuts out because I had the same measurement to the high side. So what I did is just sat it up there perpendicular to this, so it was square with the bottom thing, and with the high side touching on both sides. Now they happen to be on opposing sides, like this one was touching on this side, the other one was touching on the right hand side. So again, I just put it up there, squared it up and tacked it up, and then what I did is threw welds on the top. Now what I'll do, flip it over, put it down, I'll set it up, and I'll do welds so that I'm not doing uphill welds, or I can get into this, because what it is the tube steel has a curved edge on it. It's not a straight right angle. So even though these tube steels are the same size, you get like a gap in there, and you can't really shoot up into it and fill that gap in really good welding it while it's sitting on the table. So what I'll do is I'll set it down, set it up, weld the top, weld that, then flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. But there it is. Bracket should work good. What I'll do is I'll finish welding it out, clean it up, probably throw some paint on it so it doesn't rust. I'm not even sure if I'll use it this winter. Here it is, latter part of January, and we really haven't had a lot of snow yet. Now, again, we've had some cold weather, but the lake isn't frozen, so we could get buried from lake effect at any time. You've probably seen me stitching, let's call it stitching, that there was a huge gap in there, and it got to the point where it would puddle and droop off. So what I did is like stitched it or tacked it and kept tacking it in different places to fill that gap up so that I could weld over the top of it. Helps if you ground it. So here's that weight bracket done, welded out, and what I just finished doing is spraying some black paint on it. I touched up all the welds and used the wire wheel, went around and touched up a lot of the rust spots, especially on the bottom where it lays on the bed of the truck. It was the paint had worn off and it was all rusty, so I just took the wire wheel to it and touched up the black paint on it. I didn't do anything with that red paint. So there it is, ready for use again. Okay, I'm going to insert a little clip here in this video. While I was doing this finishing video, I was kind of thinking to myself, man, I'd like to shim the bottom of it up, not shim it up, but let me explain to you something. Before in the old truck when I had it in there, apparently it wasn't hitting the ball in the socket or the receiver hitch part of it. It wasn't hitting the ball. All of the weight was on the tube steel that rides along here and rides along over here. What it did to the old truck is actually put some cracks in here because the weight was pushing down. It actually cracked the sheet metal between the wheel well and the bed of the truck. So I was thinking, you know, as long as I was doing this, what I should have done is put some like gussets across here that, or plating that would have distributed the weight over a bigger area so that it wasn't all concentrated on that one piece of tube steel. Well, guess what? I told you this is me finishing it up. I put it in the truck, and now it hits on the ball, and there's a gap in between. It doesn't set flush on the bed. So when I said that I was going to take that inch off, I really shouldn't have taken an inch off to make it work. I probably should have actually taken half an inch off so that it would have come down and be resting on the ball and resting on the legs. So what this kind of, my mistake kind of facilitates me being able to put those gussets on it. What I'll do is I'll get some pieces of steel which will distribute the weight on the legs more evenly and avoid putting cracks in the sheet metal where those wheel wells are. But lesson learned, I should have measured it instead of just arbitrarily saying, well, I'll take an inch off of it and that'll work, and never thinking about that ball or the receptacle of the hitch bottoming out onto the top of the ball and keeping the legs up off of it. Yeah. Gotta think. We seem to be having a very mild winter, so I'm not even sure if it'll ever get used this season. It did go in the back of the truck. That's how I found out that it wouldn't fit onto that ball in the new truck because we did have a snowstorm, so I stuck it back in there. But there's that. The weights are over someplace over here. There they are, right over there. That's the, I don't usually put 5 plates on it. There was a time last year that I had, with the old truck, had 5 plates in it because we were getting hammered with some snow last year. But I usually keep just 3 of them. They're international. They're the weight plates off of international, off of the 1066, 100 pounds a piece. So between the bracket, I estimate that bracket, the weight bracket itself, here goes that gimbal. I estimate that weight bracket itself probably weighs somewhere in the neighborhood of 100, 125 pounds. And then usually I keep 300-pound plates on it. So I've got 425, almost 500 pounds. When I had the 5 on it, it's like 625. So anyways, there's that. That job's done. Just showing you a shot of the mirror on the side of my truck, passenger side mirror. Kind of why I'm showing it to you is because it's new. I just put it on. It's kind of it was expensive. I bought it from Ram or Dodge. They had one in stock here at a local dealership. Not the local dealership closest to me, but not that far away. Probably another dealer about 5 miles away from me. Anyways, what happened was, here's the old one. Glass is, these things are fairly friggin' heavy. That motor in there must be pretty big. As you can see, it's broke. glass isn't broke, but what happened was I was backing out of the overhead door. Now, that's a 10-foot door, and I hate it. It's because it's 10 foot, because it's really not 10 feet. By the way, if you see that crease in here, you see the crease in the door? I didn't do this. My landlord, when he put this door in, and he did put it in, he put this door in because the old door, when I first rented this place, because the old door was bad. So we put a new door in. When he put it in, and he had a lift, and there was a piece of conduit sticking out the back of the lift, and he was going up to wire the electronic controller, and the conduit scraped on there. But anyways, what I was saying, it's supposed to be a 10-foot door, but it's not really 10 foot. The opening is 10 foot. By the time you get the track and everything, it's down to 9.6, and the mirrors on my truck are from side to side are 8'6" to the outside. So that only leaves you 6 inches on each side. Okay, as so many times happens, I was editing the video and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, the mirrors are 8'6" apart and that door's 9'6", but wait a minute. When I'm backing out, there's a lot less than 6 inches on each side of room. So I came over here and measured the mirrors from side to side, and they're actually 9'2" wide. So actually, I have 2 inches of room on each side of the mirror, or on the sides of the mirrors from the door opening. I knew it was a lot closer than 6 inches. So anyways, another little insert what happened here is I was backing out. There was a car coming down the street, and I was paying more attention to the car coming down the street, waiting for him to pass. As you know, the front of my shop is very close to the street, less than a car length away. And I was waiting for him to pass and backed out and hooked that edge of the mirror on that door. And it just, somehow it caught the plastic. It bent it back like it should have, but it caught the edge of the plastic and snapped the edge of the plastic off. The 2 pieces of glass fell out. And I had a haul that I had to make. So this is what I did. I stuck put the glass back in there, kind of taped it in there, and then stuck a piece of wood in there so that it would be angled to the spot that I wanted it to. Now the motor still works, but the little tabs on the back of the glass are broken off, and you couldn't hook it into the motor. So I just taped it in there, wooden wedged it so that I could get the proper angle, and did that same, taped that bottom fisheye or large view mirror in the bottom there. Made my haul and came back and was kind of appalled by the cost of these things, but it had to be fixed. So lesson learned, hopefully. But anyways, there's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, the haul story. I have told you in the past that I haul a lot of generators for a guy out of Shingle House, Pennsylvania. And in our conversations, the times that I've been down there, he was telling me about a guy from Guatemala that comes to him and buys generators. He buys generators from him, and he also buys a truck, not from him, but he'll buy a truck to haul these generators with. So what he does is he comes up here to the United States, to Shingle House, Pennsylvania, in the middle of absolutely nowhere, to buy generators and buy a truck somewhere in the area to haul the generators back to Guatemala and the truck. And they use the truck in Guatemala or sell the truck in Guatemala. But anyways, he had told me that the guy, he had sold some generators to him recently. In one of my trips down there, he was telling me this, that he had sold some generators to the guy recently from Guatemala, and that they couldn't fit everything onto the truck that he had bought. So he had a cooling tower. Now, I call it a cooling tower. It's actually an independent radiator for a very large generator. And what I'll do is I will put a pick and pick over there of the or of that cooling tower, as I call it. So he says, I have that, and there's another small generator that the guy wants. Can you give me a price to take it from my place? And you're going to think to Guatemala. No, it's not to Guatemala. He says it's just outside of Boston. Well, he actually told me it was in Boston. He says it's in Boston, Massachusetts. Give me a price to go take these two items to Boston, Massachusetts. So I gave him a price, and he relayed that to the guy from Guatemala. But one of the things that me and my generator guy were talking about before I left, and there is another pic of the cooling tower over there. One of the things that he was talking about is, he says that these guys that pick up these generators don't speak English. So he says there's a very good possibility that you're going to get to Boston and the people there aren't going to be able to speak English. So just keep that in mind, and you're going to want to, he says they're not very efficient in what they do and how they load or unload stuff. You might want to give him a call, tell him how much time you figured for them to unload it, and if anything runs over, per hour cost will be added to it after that. So I did that for him. We got the address for the place outside of Boston, and it was a huge complex. And I says, I'm going to need somebody's number, a phone number or something, because there's no way I'm ever going to be able to find these people in this complex. So he got me a telephone number. When I got there, I told him that I would be there between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. I got there before 7, actually closer to 6, and just took a short nap in the parking lot there. And then at 7 o'clock, I called this guy, or called the phone number that I was provided. And sure enough, the guy didn't speak English. But in trying to converse between the two of us, we determined that he would be back to me within like 20 minutes, be there within 20 minutes. Well, about 20 minutes later, a pickup truck comes from the back of the complex out, and the way he had said it to me, I thought he was at home and would be there. And this truck came from the back of the complex, and I'm thinking, man, this is weird. But he flashed his lights at me and for me to follow him, and I followed him, and I am so glad that I had a telephone number and a contact, because where he took me, I would have never been able to find them. I'm going to try and put a pick and pick of Google Earth over there again, and I'll show you this complex. The picture that you see on Google Earth, where I had to go was actually off of that picture. It was down it's a road or a alleyway in there that goes through a bunch of dumpsters and abandoned trucks and stuff like that, and then there's a huge building back there, some smaller buildings and a huge building. Ends up that this guy that took me back there was from Guatemala. There were 3 other guys there from Guatemala. None of them spoke English, and they all lived in their trucks at this place. They were sleeping. When I pulled up into this place with this guy in the lead, there was a pickup truck in front of me running. It was really cold that day. It was 8 degrees at this place. There was a pickup truck running, and when I got out of my truck to try and converse with this guy of where he wanted me to unload this stuff, I saw that there was 2 guys sleeping in the truck that was running in front of me. And then I wanted my money first, and I was trying to convey that to him, and he took me back into a bunch of salvage trucks, big trucks we're talking about, like semis, dual axle, dual rear axle trucks. He starts walking in between these trucks, and pretty soon we come to a camper that's buried underneath the bed, the flatbed of an old truck, was on top of this camper, and there was a guy living in it. And I'm thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into? But here we are just outside of Boston basically in a truck salvage yard. And there's 4 guys from Guatemala living in the salvage yard, and their trucks are in this like abandoned camper thing. It was just really strange. But anyways, I thought you guys would get a kick out of that story, and I got the cooling tower unloaded fine. I got my money. The guy just pulled out like $1,000 in cash out of his pocket, and I got my money, and everything was all cool and good. But I was just amazed that these guys were living there, can't speak English, no English at all, and living in the salvage yard. But anyways, until next time, that's it for this shop update. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe.